Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining us right here on Kardec Radio for another program, Spiritism, a closer look. And I always say this, we do this every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Luiz Lima here, broadcasting from the city of Porto in Portugal today. We are going to take a closer look on this program at the third age. Third age. It's somewhat a fascinating and current topic to discuss with. And I say current because it's something that has been under discussion. It's a subject that it's been under discussion across the globe, everywhere. It's really something that most people have interest in. And I say fascinating because science has been researching heavily, I would say, on the subject, and science is researching the onset, especially the onset and establishment of conditions that are usually associated with the third age. Things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. These are conditions that are usually associated with old age, the third age. So science is heavily working on it, and we are finding a lot of interesting things. So we are going to take a look at the subject from the Spiritist perspective today. Third age, we could say it's a relative concept. It might sound a little strange to say that, but it is, because different people have different views, they understand differently. So everyone has its own point of view. And it all begins with the question, for example, when does it start? So if you ask around, when does it start? We're going to get a whole set of different answers, a lot of different answers. And that's why I say it's a relative concept. It's not something still black and white. Like I said, science is still researching, and we are finding more and more stuff from the scientific side every day. But let's take a look at the four phases of life. If we look at the four phases of life, the first one is childhood. There is a general sense, a general idea, this overall idea that childhood is related to the process of learning. And it is. That's when we start learning things, from the get-go. So there's a general sense, a general idea that childhood and learning are associated. The next phase would be youth. Youth carries a different overall idea, which is action. During the youth phase, the person, the incarnate spirit, wants to take action, do things, be productive. So the general word here is action. So learning is a general word or idea for childhood, action for youth. Then there's a third phase, which is adulthood. Adulthood brings a different idea. Now we go into maturity, responsibility. So it's not only action, and as we go along, by the way, it aggregates. So the action in youth does not replace the learning in childhood, it aggregates. So maturity and responsibility in adults does not replace action and learning, it aggregates. So we become a richer person in terms of wisdom and knowledge. So adulthood brings this general idea of maturity, responsibility. So action, yes, but action with responsibility. And there's a phase number 4, the fourth phase, which is the old age. There are different names for this, but we are just going to call old age and third age at times. This is the phase for synthesis. So it's like you get all these pieces together that happen in your learning phase, in your action phase, in your responsibility phase. So let's put it all together and look at this thing. Let's do like a wrap up. This is the old age phase, which carries a general idea of a synthesis and wisdom. So that's when we are going to use all the learning that we had, all the action that we took, all the responsibility that we learned, to express, and we're going to put all these pieces together, and that becomes wisdom, which is the ability to use all of that uh, in a certain way. So the old age carries these two ideas, synthesis and wisdom. Now, understanding old age might be a little bit challenging if you subscribe to the materialistic paradigm, because the materialistic paradigm considers there's only one life. So when you die, that's it. Nothing else comes after that. So when you look at third age from that perspective, it could be frightening for some. It could generate revolt for others. It could be puzzling for others, because it really becomes difficult to deal with aging under the materialistic paradigm. Now, if you bring another variable to the equation, and that variable being reincarnation, everything changes. The understanding of old age becomes a lot more, I would say, becomes clearer. Not so diffuse like that. No, it's really clear. If you consider, and Spiritism teaches this, from the get-go, the purpose of reincarnation is progress, moral progress, intellectual progress. So from that perspective, we have experienced several third ages in the past. We had one third age for every life that we had, every incarnation that we had. And we will continue to experience third age as many times as needed to be reincarnated here, which will only stop when we become perfect. Then we don't need to reincarnate anymore. But for as long as I have to reincarnate on a physical body, have a birthday, and go through life, and a last day on the earth, we will have third age. So third age is not, for the spirit, for us as spirits, is nothing really new. We have gone through that several times. And again, like I said, we will go as many more as needed. So at the end of the physical life, or each of these physical lives that we had the opportunity, the same way we will on this one, we'll have the opportunity to review our experiences, to reflect upon our experiences, on our actions, on our learning, everything that came from throughout the four phases of this physical life. And this is what the third age is all about. It's the opportunity to reconcile, not only with others, but with ourselves. With ourselves. What do I mean by reconcile with ourselves? Let's just say, for example, that when you were young, let's say, I don't know, maybe 15 or so, you had a fight with somebody. It could be a friend, somebody in school, it could be a family member, it could be a parent. You had this big, huge fight, which at the time meant a lot to you, and you took a radical action, and you decided to never see that person again, never talk to that person again, and time goes by. So 35 years later, 40 years later, 45 years later, you look back and you say, well, that was a little bit off. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I was wrong all along, and I just didn't want to admit. Maybe I was right, but I didn't have to be so incisive on the situations. So all of these things, I'm reconciling with the self. We are gathering experiences that we had in the past in this life, still in this life. And we are trying to do a synthesis of what we had and reconcile with the self, which could lead us to reconcile with others by reviewing, reanalyzing the experience that we had a long time ago and the actions that we took. It might lead us to reconcile not only with myself, with ourselves, but with other people that we maybe, offended, we were harsh on. So the third age is this opportunity to use the wisdom that I now have, that was acquired throughout life, to reconcile with the self and others, to get out of this life, quotes please, in good shape. So the wisdom that we are referring to here is in the sense that the spirit now has a lot more elements to evaluate its achievements, its legacy, its failures, and work on it to grow as a spirit, morally, intellectually. The third age is not at all, is neither an ending nor a punishment. That could be thought so if you subscribe to the materialistic paradigm. If you don't have the visibility of a next life, or life after death, if you will, it could be complicated. So the third age or old age could be seen as a punishment. And that complicates things a little bit, because then everybody is punished no matter what. If you did good or if you did, evil things, we're all gonna die. We're all gonna age. If you consider aging as a punishment, everybody's punished. So what's the point? Kind of doesn't make any sense, right? So in this last phase of life, this fourth phase of life, it's a phase for the synthesis and the consolidation of the experiences that we had. And it's an important phase because it's the harvest of what we planted in our youth or younger days. Now, we live in a society, we all live in a society regardless, and society many times puts the value on the physical youth. Spiritism, on the other hand, puts the value on the spiritual maturity, not the physical youth. Spiritual maturity, which will come with time and experience. So old age becomes this point of inflection where we are going to look back, look into the past, what we did, mix with the elements that we now have to change things around for a better future. So the old age is this necessary point of inflection at the end of each life that will give us the opportunity to leave this world in better shape, morally and intellectually. Now, the elderly carries the assets of the spiritual experiences he had or she had. And that should be shared. This is what life is all about: sharing, collaboration, helping others, doing good things, good deeds. So this is the time, this is the third age, is the time to share what was learned, because now I have the wisdom. What an opportunity. The experiences that we had, those are the great masters of the soul. One interesting thing is there's a lot of, I'm not going to say concern, but I would say there's a lot of jokes even about grandparents, spending time with their grandchildren. So usually it's like this. Oh, the grandparents will, if they spend too much time with the grandkids, they will spoil the grandkids. That's a typical conversation, typical talk in our modern day society. So, you know, a lot of people, a lot of parents don't want to leave their kids for too long with the grandchildren, with the grandparents. Now think about this. When you are, let's put in numbers so it makes easier to convey the message. So let's say you are a parent and you are 30, okay, 30 years old, and you have a kid, say 5 or 6 years old, and you want to teach him, you know, what you think you're entitled to. So you're gonna teach, in theory, good deeds. So you're there with the kids every day, teaching this, teaching that. Now, when the grandparents come over and you leave your children with the grandparents, a lot of parents complain, oh, you're gonna spoil my children, you're gonna do this, and I don't let them do this, and you give them this, and you treat them differently, and you let them do this, and I don't let them do this. Let's put this into perspective from the spirit perspective. What you are able to teach your kids when you are 30, that's what we're going for here. It's limited in comparison with another human being that is, say, 60. The 60-year-old has a different type of wisdom. He has had more experiences. He has had more opportunities for self-evaluation, for world experiences. He just simply knows more. So certain things will come from them. For example, you might not teach your kids when you are 30, for example, patience. Say patience, because you're in a hurry, you work and you have 2 jobs and you do this and that and you're up and down all the time and you're a very active person. So you don't have a lot of patience with your kids. Hypothetically, when your kid spends time with their grandparents, that's the thing they're going to learn. Patience. The wisdom of being patient. So there is knowledge being shared. So they need that kind of wisdom that, as a parent, you might not be able to provide now. So this is the third age, the ability to share. Now it's time to share all the wisdom, so let me share. For example, like I said, the patience acquired due to pain, for example. The patience acquired due to losses. If you are in your 30s, maybe you haven't had a significant loss yet, but the grandparents at 60, 70, 80, they have. So they have more experience. The depth of their knowledge is different than yours. They would be able to, because of their wisdom, they would be able to understand that, you see, understanding should replace criticism. But there's the need, the wisdom has to be there. The maturity of the faith that they carry could be much stronger than you as a parent, for example, because they've had more opportunities to see and feel the action of providence. So that kind of wisdom will be passed along to the grandchildren in a different way. In no way whatsoever we are mentioning replacing one for the other. Please, aggregating, adding more. So how many times, we hear people saying, oh, I have seen so much in this life. Yeah, so now it's the time to use in our favor. Now it's the time to get all of that out and share that. Transmit that wisdom and be the example for the next generation. Reconcile with those we don't like or we had dislikes in the past. Before it's too late. By the way, Jesus says that, right? Reconcile with your adversary before it's too late. To serve other people is possible in third age, even with the limitations of the physical body. So you're not going to serve by carrying heavy weights and boxes, no, but you are able to serve with prayer, which requires nothing special in the physical body. We can serve others with kind words, with our welcoming presence. It makes a difference for those people. And it makes a difference for, those in the third age who are being granted that opportunity. They are preparing themselves with serenity to return to the spirit world and trust in the continuation of life. Of course, there's going to be difficulties in old age. Solitude is one of them. Physical limitations, we just spoke about this, but solitude, social isolation. These are things that they could be difficult. So how can Spiritism help? First of all, Spiritism teaches how to dissociate physical age from spiritual age. Two different things. Your kid could be a spirit that was created way before you did. So if you translate this to a spiritual age, they are older than you are. Physically, no. So physical age and spiritual age is not the same thing. The body weakens, but the spirit does not. You see, there's no such a thing as the aging of the spirit, because aging relates to the transformation of molecules, cells, atoms, etc. So it is something material. It is something material. The spirit, intelligent principle, does not age because it's not made of anything material. The intelligent principle is not made of cells and atoms and molecules and quarks and leptons. No. So that takes us to the next thing. We age our bodies. The spirit, the intelligent principle, ages the body. There's a very interesting experience. It's related in a book called Mindfulness by Ellen Langer. It's a very interesting experience that took place in the late 1980s. So what she was studying, people aging and third age and all of that. So she prepared an old monastery that had been abandoned in the neighborhood of Boston. So everything was decorated, everything was prepared and decorated as if you were in the 1940s. So, the decoration was all 1940s. The TV set was those, CRT TV sets, black and white, all the decorations and the type of materials used in the decoration, everything 1940. So she took to the monastery for 1 week a group of people that she divided into. One group was led to believe they were gonna be in the 40s. So they were told, you're gonna be in an environment that, looks like you are in the 1940s and so and so. The other group was told they were gonna go back in time to 1940. Before the experiment starts on day 1, they took all the biometric parameters for all people, both groups. So all the biometric meters were taken on day 1. At the end of so for the group that was told they were gonna be in 1940, the TV set was gonna be on at the proper times of the day that simulated 1940s. For example, the news broadcasts, and the broadcaster was this guy, for example, Walter Cronkite, which was a broadcaster in the 40s. So he was this very famous guy. He would read the news from 1940s. At the end of the experiment, the biometric meters were taken for all the same people. The ones that were told that, you're gonna be in an environment similar to 1940s, just do what you want to do. The biometric meters did not change from day 1. Now the other group that were told you're gonna be in 1940s, the biometric meters changed from being compatible with their age to being compatible with being 40 years younger. That's why I say we age the body. So aging becomes this personal way of finishing your reincarnation here. Well, thank you so much for being with us once again. And don't forget, Spiritism, A Closer Look will be here on Wednesday at 7 p.m. as we do every week. Thanks so much.